Doing the Bible verse of the day thing today. And today's verse, Luke chapter 16, verse 10, is he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. And then we'll just get that in mind. What's the meaning of that? Think about the meaning of that. It's pretty straightforward, right? You'll do well with a little bit, so you'll do well with a lot, and God will address that accordingly, right? That just makes sense. This is it's a logical statement, but where it sits, I've always been a little bit confused on this, but it sits in the parable of the unjust steward. And I'll just read that right now. The parable of unjust steward, chapter 16, Luke 16. He also said to his disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be my steward. Makes sense, right? If you've got somebody you're working with that's taking care of your finances, your bookkeeping, and monitoring that, and you hear, hey, something ain't quite right there. You go, hey, you're done. We're just give me account of it. You're going to stop right there. Now you're going to give me account of it. So that's where we're at right now. Now then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my master is taking the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. I have resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called to every one of his master's debtors to him and said to the first, how much do you owe my master? And again, if he was a just and a good steward, he would know, right? And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. So it's kind of shady, right? The master, you wouldn't like that if you took if somebody was taking, hey, this guy owes you, he's going to owe you less. So you're going to have less. You worked for it, you made the deal, everything was good, and now you're going to get less for that. Then he said to another, how much do you owe? So he said 100 measures of wheat, and he said to him, take your bill and write 80. Or 100, 100 measures, 80. So the master, so the master takes a look at the books, and he sees what the unjust steward has done, and he says, he commended the unjust steward because he dealt shrewdly. He dealt shrewdly? He commended? Does that make any sense? Think about that. Does this make any sense? Would any man in their right mind act in such a way? Does this make sense? We have to ask ourselves that. Is what the story? Does this make sense? Is Jesus saying this is something good that had happened? Oh, look, this man did something bad, and it turned out good for him. Is that what Jesus would say? Is that what the world would say even? Just a question. Those are the questions that go through my mind. And now think about what is said ahead, what we just read at the beginning. I know, and I believe and I trust in the holy word of God to be right and righteous and real. There's no question in my mind about that. But what is the lesson we're supposed to learn? What are we supposed to obtain from reading through this? That's my question, my thoughts, what I'm thinking about right now. Let's see. So this man, he says, this is what Jesus says about this. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon. Is that something that is right? Is that right? Let's think about that. By unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they may receive you into an everlasting home. And then we get verse 10, what says, he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. And he who is unjust in what is least is unjust also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust and true riches? And if you have not been faithful in what is another man's, who will give you what is your own? So really, what's the man going to get by doing that? Was this a good and right thing to do? No, I don't think this parable is about saying that. I think Jesus is using this parable to get to the point of because he goes on about the Pharisees, the law and the prophets, and how they are not doing right. And we get into the story of Lazarus and the rich man, and the rich man falling into a rich man who ignored Lazarus, who was a beggar, and the rich man ends up in hell, and Lazarus in heaven, and there's a back and forth about that. So I really think this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek story from Jesus, and I've never looked at it that way. It's just kind of new to me a little bit in that thought, so I had to get that out there and share that, record that, and so that's the thought. We got to look at some of the things in the Bible, some of the stories. We have to dig a little deeper in our thought process, and what's the point trying to be made? The unjust things, he was not commending the unjust steward. He was saying, tongue-in-cheek, that's not going to work, is it? That's just not going to work. We're going to have to answer for all the wicked and evil things that we do, and we got to take care of things as we take care of them. That's the only way we're going to be able to receive the things that are good, is take care of the things that are almost good. So that's my thought. So yeah, thanks Cool Cat, thanks out there. And yeah, I just had to get that out there, get that recorded. I had that thought this morning as I'm studying through the verse of the day and going, yeah, that doesn't sit right. I've never thought about it. It never has sat right with me. You know, the unjust steward doesn't make any sense. So anyway, appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And that was all I had for today. So thanks.